The Zulu Girl, Roy Campbell. When in the sun the hot red acres smoulder, down where the sweating gang its labour plies, a girl flings down her hoe, and from her shoulder unslings her child tormented by flies. She takes him to a ring of shadow pooled by the thorn tree, purpled with the blood of ticks, while her sharp nails, in slow caresses ruled, prowl through his hair with sharp electric clicks. His sleepy mouth, plugged by the heavy nipple, tugs like a puppy, grunting as he feels. Through his frail nerves her own deep languors ripple, like a broad river sighing through the reeds. Yet in that drowsy stream his flesh imbibes, and old, unquenched, unsmotherable heat, the curbed ferocity of beaten tribes, the sullen dignity of their defeat. Her body looms above him like a hill, within whose shade a village lies at rest, or the first cloud so terrible and still that bears the coming harvest in its breast.
Sound devices. The rhyme structure of the stanzas provides the poem with regular rhythm. AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF. Sound is employed to add richness to the images of the grunting child. Clicks, the sound of the mother's nails rustling through the child's hair. Sighing, the personified sighing of the river as the mother's milk passes to her child. The alliteration of the d sound in dignity of their defeat adds to the forceful patterns of speech. The long words in this stanza show that the mother is trying to calm down her baby as well as her own fatigue. Themes and ideas in the Zulu Girl. The poverty, hardship, and oppression suffered by Zulu people. 2. The difficult role, especially of women, as both workers and mothers. This is also a prophetic, visionary poem that celebrates the strength and endurance of the Zulu girl. She becomes the mother who is compared to the first cloud that brings the rain that will lead to a harvest. This metaphor suggests that the children of the oppressed people will one day reap the harvest of their suffering. They will overcome their oppression with help from mothers like the Zulu girl in the poem. This poem is also about generations and relationships. The struggle is generational, from the mother to her son. And relational, this is about family. Again, the mother-son relationship. In the literal meaning, the baby is drinking from its mother. Figuratively, the baby is not only drinking his mother's milk, but also her beliefs, emotions, and ideas. The Zulu Girl is a powerful recreation of the hardships and endurance of South African people. On the surface, this poem is simply an observation of a Zulu woman feeding her child. However, upon closer consideration, it becomes clear that the poem is also about oppression, specifically of women. The speaker provides details of the plight, the troubles, the hardships of the Zulu girl. These observations include minute details, very small details, important small details that make the poem both personal and reflective of many young women who suffered the same plight. The poem is both powerful in sound and in effect. The poem is set during the day, perhaps the hottest part of the day, and the sun sheds its hot rays on the ground, the red-hot acres. The farm seems to be under the powerful heat of the sun. It is so hot that the red-hot acres, the African landscape, seem ready to burst into flames. In the field is the gang. The word gang suggests that its members have no individuality or identity. They are treated rather like prisoners, or are being made to undertake forced labor. Certainly they have no pride or pleasure in the work they are doing, and are actually under some kind of compulsion. Now the observation is focused on the girl who flings down her hoe, which can be seen as an act of defiance of authority, which exacts her submission, makes her do the kind of work that she probably does not want to do, but is forced to do. It also shows a turning away from mass production to the responsibilities of reproduction. She unslings her child from her shoulder. The child, besides being tormented by the flies, is also in need of nourishment. So the girl takes him to a patch of thin shade nearby to feed him at her breast. While the girl feeds the child, she passes her hand caressingly through his hair. It is significant, perhaps, that the mother is referred to as a girl. This may suggest that she is not a wife and belongs to the vast number of black South Africans who have lost their traditional ways of life and have been caught up in the chaos of the modern world. In stanzas 3, 4, and 5, the poet goes on to give his impression of the relationship and feeling between the mother and child in more than just a physical sense. The child is grunting as he feeds. He's feeding greedily and expressing his simple but deep satisfaction. Not only does the child take in physical nourishment, however, for during this process of feeding, the mother's own deep feelings ripple and are conveyed, passed through little by little into the child's body and the child's nerves, the child's future. The poem admirably suggests the strong, intimate mother and child relationship developed by breastfeeding, often lost or destroyed in more advanced, in inverted commas, cultures. The word languors is important. It tells us that the girl appears weary, tired, unenthusiastic, hopeless, as though expressing a deep despair and resentment against the whole situation in which she finds herself. In the previous slide, we discussed that the girl was tired, she was unenthusiastic, she'd been working, the baby's on her shoulder. She has to leave that work and sit down and then feed the baby. Is not a normal place where we would think of having a mother sit down and feed her baby. However, through the concluding simile, there is a kind of prophetic hint that the scene we have witnessed is not final, and that a different and better state of affairs is bound to come in the future. This hope is glimpsed imaginatively by the poet's intuition and is conveyed in the form of an indirect suggestion. This poem was written around 1929. At that time, obviously, South Africa was still in the grips of an apartheid era, an apartheid government, and the working conditions of the people, the dreams and hopes of the people, would have been something that would have not been taken seriously by many people. This poet, however, has actually noticed in this single situation, in this single example of a mother feeding a child, that there is so much more that is happening in the simple, everyday interaction. So, the poem begins with a fairly simple, observed situation, the mother feeding a child. And as the poet develops and reflects upon it, its references broaden out until it is of worldwide significance. The first strong impression we are given in the poem is that of heat, which scorches the landscape where the girl is working. The acres are red, the predominant color of the African earth, but hot red, an obvious pair of adjectives, suggest in our mind something similar, red hot. The words usually applied to heated iron. This, together with the metaphor of smolder, gives the impression that the land is almost too hot to bear and could almost burst into flames. Other details that emphasize the unpleasant nature of the gang's work include the gang is sweating. The child is tormented by the flies. The girl flings down the hoe. She does not just drop it or throw it down. Flings suggests impatience and exasperation. There's also the rhythm and the rhyme, the pattern that's emphasized. So the words are emphasizing the rhythm, the words and the rhyme is emphasizing the movement, the physical effort of the girl as she takes down the child from her back. When in the sun the red hot acres smolder, a girl flings down her hoe and from her shoulder unslings her child, tormented by the flies. In stanza 2, we read how the mother, in the meager, small, little shade of the thorn trees, is searching the hair of her child for ticks. Again, a detail which suggests the poverty and unsanitary conditions under which the labourers lived and worked. We notice that her sharp nails are purpled with the blood of parasites. In fact, the phrase purpled with the blood of ticks is grammatically out of place, but perhaps also reflective of how things are also out of place in this picture. Our attention is held by the metaphor proud, which suggests that her fingers are like a fierce animal searching through the forest for its prey. The sharp electric clicks produced when she finds a tick and cracks it between her fingernails. This produces a sound like that given by an electric spark, like from a battery. Not only does the metaphor give the impression, but the sounds of the word sequence, the ick sound in ticks, electric clicks, emphasize and intensify this. However, for the Zulu girl, even in her mood of hopelessness, her motherhood, and the satisfaction she has in feeding her child arouse in her a kind of pride. The words, the old, unquenched, unsmotherable heat, a feeling perhaps that her life has some value, that she is taking part in an important life process, that she is not alone and abandoned. She belongs. to an old enduring tradition of human struggle and survival. Her tribes, though curbed and beaten for the time being, have a dignity in their defeat and still retain their self-respect and are ready to rise again. As the poem develops, we move gradually closer to the mother, until in the final stanza, we are looking up at her, almost as through the eyes of the child himself. And she appears as an impressive, statuesque figure, shielding and protecting her helpless infant. In the last two lines, after being compared to a hill, she is likened to a great storm cloud, which bears the coming harvest in its breast. Without appealing to our emotions blatantly, the poet tells it as it is. He arouses our sympathy for the Zulu girl's hardship. This leads to an admiration for the endurance and for the strength of life that is seen in her. In stanza 3, we see and hear that the baby's mouth is plugged as he tugs at the nipple, grunting as he feeds. The sequence of the ugly vowel sounds suggests the greediness and hunger of the baby as he feeds. This is intensified in the animal simile, like a puppy, in which the same vowel sound appears. If the child is a puppy, then is his mother a dog? The poet describes the deep and strong feelings which pass in a steady flow from the mother to the child. The simile of the broad river is further strengthened by like a broad river sighing through its reeds. Stanza 4 arouses our attention with an unexpected switch of thought, almost like a paradox. In the physical sense, it is obviously the child who is drinking milk from its mother, but he is also drinking in her struggles and her hopes. For the mother, her flesh is, in a deeper sense, also drinking from the drowsy stream. She is being nourished and fed by the future she is holding in her hands, the baby. To make the sudden change, the shift from the reflective, something you're thinking about, to the aggressive, more assertive, more forceful, there is a sudden change in the rhythm and sound qualities of the stanza. We come to the vigorous climax of unsmotherable, a multi-syllable word, unsmotherable. Yet in that drowsy stream, her flesh imbibes an old, unquenched, unsmotherable heat. The word unsmotherable takes on special force in its context with unquenched and seems to prepare the way for the monosyllable heat, which gives the line its decisive conclusion. The line as a whole is an emphatic statement of the unquenchable vigor and spirit of the African people. Nothing can blot out or obliterate their primal energy, their heat. While the land is hot and smouldering, so are the people. This conviction is repeated in a slightly different rhythmic pattern in the curbed ferocity of beaten tribes, the sullen dignity of their defeat, where the alliteration B and D sounds add to the forceful pattern of speech. The poem now moves to its prophetic climax, and the Zulu girl takes on the significance of a symbol. She is no longer just a single, stray, exploited, hard-working individual in some remote part of the veldt. She represents the potential of her race for suffering, survival, and triumph. Her body is grand and imposing. It looms over her child, and its protective power is beautifully shown in the picturesque simile of a hill within whose shade a village lies at rest. We notice now that her shade, unlike that of the thorn tree, a mere pool, is unbroken and extensive, and in it the village lies in peace and tranquility, at rest. The looming hill leads our thoughts to the second simile of the great thundercloud, so terrible and still, which suggests violent storms to come in the near future, but with the prospect of a welcome harvest in the fullness of time. The Zulu Girl is a short but meaningful poem in which many poetic devices have been used to discuss one of the urgent problems of the modern world. This commentary has been adapted from H.L.B. Moody's Literary Appreciation. It was written as an essay.